Hi, everybody. We're the Non-Prophets. I'm your host, Jeff D. Our producer is Russell Glasser.
Hello.
And today's guests are Denis Loubet.
Howdy.
And Martin Wagner, who's not quite dragged his sorry ass into the studio yet, but he should be here any minute. Today's opening music was Desconocido Soy by David Byrne, which, according to the Babelfish translation tool in Alta Vista, means I'm a stranger. Now, I understand we had some audio difficulties for the first part of that song, and for those of you listening live, you probably only heard sound in one ear during that. But I'm going to check with Russell. Russell, do you think maybe when we put this up there for rebroadcast that we can patch in an improved version of that song?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Fix it in post?
It'll be, anyway, you know, we play the whole song at the end of the show anyway, so if anything, or at the very least, we'll get it to you good there. We're live March 27, 2004. I want to welcome everybody in the chat room, of whom there are a unbelievable number.
Hang on, I'll count.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming in to listen to us live on Atheist Network Chat. And as usual, thanks to the Atheist Network for hosting our show. You guys completely rock.
32.
32?
Wow.
That completely blows away all previous records, doesn't it?
I guess we can have beer today.
We get beer. Wow.
Beer?
Okay. Let's go into news stories.
Okay.
The big thing that's going on.
Oh, the Passion of the Christ.
No, not that. We did that last time.
Oh? What could be big? What could be big? What could be big now?
And we were already late when we did it then.
Right.
What could be bigger than that?
Michael Newdow, man.
Ah.
Well, okay, first, zombies, who are now bigger than Jesus.
They're now bigger than Jesus. All right.
In case anybody out there doesn't know, the remake of
Dawn of the Dead.
Of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Has taken over the number one spot as top movie in the country. Though there's a certain, similarity there, right? I mean, they're both about people that died and got back up again.
Right. Good point.
So there's sort of a theme. It's like, we had the year of the shark movies and the year of the underwater movies and the year of the meteor movies and the year of the fantasy movies.
Now we have the year of the coming back from the dead movies. It'd make a very different ending for Passion of the Christ if he gets up at the end and goes and charges the Roman soldiers.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
But I don't want to talk about that film.
No.
That is so 2 weeks ago.
The new big thing. The new big thing.
The new big thing is Michael Newdow has done his deal in front of the Supreme Court.
Yay!
And by all accounts, he also kicked some ass.
Good.
Here's the news story. Michael A. Newdow stood before the justices of the Supreme Court on Wednesday, pointed to one of the courtroom's two American flags, and declared, "I am an atheist. I don't believe in God." With passion and precision, he then proceeded to argue his own case for why the daily recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance in his daughter's public school classroom violates the Constitution as long as the pledge contains the words, "under God." Dr. Newdow, a non-practicing lawyer who makes his living as an emergency room doctor, may not win his case. In fact, justices across the ideological spectrum appeared to be searching for reasons he should lose, either on jurisdictional grounds or on the merits. But no one who managed to get a seat in the courtroom is likely ever to forget his spellbinding performance. This is like the New York Times.
Yeah.
Wow, they're not usually that hyperbole.
That includes the justices, whom Dr. Newdow engaged in repartee that, while never disrespectful, bore a closer resemblance to dinner-table one-upmanship than to formal courtroom discourse. For example, when Dr. Newdow described "under God" as a divisive addition to the pledge, Chief Justice William H. Rehnquist asked him what the vote in Congress had been 50 years ago when the phrase was inserted. "The vote was unanimous," Dr. Newdow said. "Well, that doesn't sound divisive," the Chief Justice observed. Dr. Newdow shot back, "That's only because no atheist can get elected to public office."
Mm-hmm.
The courtroom audience broke into applause, an exceedingly rare event that left the Chief Justice temporarily nonplussed. He appeared to collect himself for a moment and then sternly warned the audience that the courtroom would be cleared if there's any more clapping. So that just sounds like we are talking movie material, right?
This is like one of those scenes.
That's great.
Like in Inherit the Wind or something.
Uh-huh.
Right.
That's awesome.
You'd think. You would think.
Yeah, I mean, get your point across and dig in the nail saying, look, we're all second-class citizens, you know? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Earlier, Dr. Newdow responded to Justice Stephen G. Breyer's suggestion that under God had acquired such a broad meaning and civic context that it's meant to include virtually everybody, and the few whom it doesn't include don't have to take the pledge.
What?
I don't think that I can include under God to mean no God, Dr. Newdow replied. I deny the existence of God. He added, government needs to stay out of this business altogether. The current pledge, and I read that exchange. They actually did not do justice to the exchange that actually occurred. There's another article that was like 8 pages long of just excerpts from like the good bits from the court, and it was actually clearer and punchier than that. But that's all right. They can fix that in the script review.
I had some people ask why Michael Newdow is representing himself instead of hiring a lawyer when he's not actually a lawyer. But apparently he has a law degree. He just works in an emergency room as a doctor instead. To which somebody said, damn underachiever.
He is a lawyer. He's just not practicing. Yeah, right. Let's see. Solicitor General Theodore B. Olson, who defended the pledge, told the judges that the appeals court misunderstood the pledge. The phrase under God did not place the pledge in the category of religious expressions that the Supreme Court has found unconstitutional, he said. For example, state-sponsored prayers, religious rituals or ceremonies, or the requirement of teaching or not teaching a religious doctrine. Rather, Mr. Olson said, under God was one of various civic and ceremonial acknowledgments of the indisputable historical fact that caused the framers of our Constitution and the signers of the Declaration of Independence to say that they had the right to revolt and start a new country. He said the framers believed that God gave them the right to declare their independence when the king has not been living up to his inalienable principles given to them by God. Can I jump in there with a comment?
Yeah! I can see a big thing right there. Go for it.
Why would the signers of the Declaration of Independence need to believe that they got that right from a God? I mean, they didn't believe in monarchy, and monarchy is only propped up by the claim that the monarch is given the right to rule by a god.
Right.
Well, as soon as they don't believe in a monarchy, they no longer fucking care what gods might say about them splitting off and forming a new country, right? Isn't this true?
Well, they're saying the God isn't on the king's side, it's on their side.
But that's not what they said.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Martin Wagner.
Give it up. Give it up.
Something into the mic there, Martin.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late, gentlemen.
We're in the middle of going over news reports about Newdow's performance.
Yeah, apparently he gave a really good accounting of himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're just going over. Well, you'll catch up as we go.
I'm sure.
Everybody listening to the show already knows.
All right.
All right. So. Solicitor General Olson claimed that the founders felt they had to appeal to a god to give them the right to split off and start a new country. That description of the pledge appeared to gain little traction as the argument proceeded. I do assume that if you read the pledge carefully, the reference to under God means something more than a mere description of how somebody else once thought, Justice David H. Souter said to Dr. Newdow moments later. Justice Souter's question for Dr. Newdow was whether, even assuming that school children were being asked as a technical matter to make a personal religious affirmation, The recitation had become, in practice, so tepid, so diluted, so far, let's say, from a compulsory prayer, that in fact it should be, in effect, beneath the constitutional radar. Was it the case, Justice Souter asked, that by the way we live and think and work in schools and in civic society in which the pledge is made, that whatever is distinctly religious as an affirmation is simply lost? Dr. Newdow replied, that is a view that you may choose to take, and the majority of Americans may choose to take, but it's not the view I take. And when I see the flag, and I think of pledging allegiance, it's like I'm getting slapped in the face every time. Bam! You know, this is a nation under God. Your religious belief system is wrong. In 1943, 11 years before Congress added under God, the court ruled that no one could be compelled to say the Pledge of Allegiance. That case was brought by Jehovah's Witnesses, whose religion forbids saluting the flag. Dr. Newdow said opting out was a huge imposition to put on a small child. He continued, government is doing this to my child. They're putting her in a milieu where she says, hey, the government is saying that there is a God, and my dad says no, and that's an injury to me. Dr. Newdow, 50, often spoke very rapidly, but never appeared to lose his footing during the 30 minutes the court gave him. He managed a trick that far more experienced lawyers rarely accomplish, to bring the argument to a symmetrical and seemingly unhurried ending just as the red light came on.
Wow.
There is a principle here, he told the justices in his closing moments, and I'm hoping the court will uphold this principle so that we can finally go back and have every American want to stand up, face the flag, place their hand over their heart, and pledge to one nation, indivisible, not divided by religion, with liberty and justice for all.
Wow,
cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It sounds like he did a great job. I mean,
it's very impressive.
I don't know how I'll be able to handle it if after that the Supreme Court decides to rule against him.
Yeah, what would their position be? I take it.
Well, the position would be that we're second-class citizens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to justify...
Their official position would be that under God is meaningless, just like they said.
Which means we should load up our oaths with all sorts of meaningless crap.
That's right.
Wonderful.
If it's so meaningless, why do they make a big fuss?
Right.
It seems to be a huge fuss to make over keeping something in the pledge if they themselves admit it's meaningless. That the only argument they have to defend its existence in the pledge is that it's meaningless.
Yeah.
It just seems to be it's a self-defeating
Well, but of course,
point.
The challenge is whether this thing should be made unconstitutional or not, right? And from a certain perspective, I guess it can be reasonably argued that we shouldn't be going to the Supreme Court every time there is a meaningless thing in something that we do and force it to be taken out because it offends someone.
Yeah. Something meaningless isn't unconstitutional.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. This is a statement of a religious nature specifically, and that's why it's constitutional.
Now, there are even, and this was asked in the court. There are religious people who have objected to under God in the pledge, or objected to the claim that under God in the pledge is meaningless, because what that means is that what the government is doing is every school day they're having children stand up, put their hand over their hearts, and take the Lord's name in vain.
Good point.
Yeah.
But the lawyer from the school district that Newdow went up against on this issue came up with this. I cannot remember the details of what his excuse was, but it was a slightly different spin than I've seen before. You know, the old, well, no, it's not taking the Lord's name in vain because really it's a political and patriotic declaration. Well, I don't know. You're still talking about the God in there. How does that?
No.
Right.
But that was the response he gave.
Again, I thought patriotic had to do with loving your country. And this is another example of this attempt to redefine patriotism so that it's equivalent to religion.
Yeah, loving my God. Yeah. All right.
Patriotism isn't about what religious belief you have or what invisible friend you worship. It's all about just being proud to be part of your country, part of your society. But they want to redefine it so as to place religious belief at the center of it.
Sure. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'll be able to...
Now, would I be correct in saying that Scalia is still not involved in these hearings?
So there's 8 judges.
Yeah.
He's off fishing with Cheney.
And if they're evenly split on their decision, then Newdale wins.
Well, then it's unconstitutional in that school district, or the territory covered by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Okay.
Right.
And I've heard.
That's the same as the outcome of a victory, isn't it? What happens if there's an actual clear-cut victory?
What happens if there's an actual clear-cut victory is it's unconstitutional everywhere.
Well, but there's no. I mean, either it's going to be a victory for Newdow or it's not. There's no compromise position here, is there? Even if it's 4-4, it's a victory for Newdow.
My understanding is that if there's a tie, then
if there's a tie, then the lower court ruling stands. But I've heard, and I'm not being a lawyer, I'm reluctant to jump in and say it definitely means this thing or it definitely means that thing. Because I've heard responses to that outcome ranging from, well, if the lower court ruling stands, then it's a done deal, it's unconstitutional, all the way to, well, if it stands, then it's only unconstitutional in that area and sort of up in the air everywhere else.
Right. Well, I guess we'll just have to...
I don't know.
We'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
I don't know.
Wow. Exciting week, eh?
Quite so.
Yeah.
Russell?
I have full transcripts of, I guess, you just have a report on Newdow's testimony.
I haven't found a full transcript, but I did find this 6 or 8 page long selection of excerpts.
Right.
The good bits.
Yeah. Okay.
And the good bits were pretty darn good.
Yeah.
They really were.
And there was a very favorable editorial about Newdow and his performance in the New York Times. I mean, he's...
Yeah, I actually have that. It's called Jefferson Madison Newdow.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. Hey. Of course, the New York Times editorial page definitely does tend towards a liberal bias. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No. They piss off Fox News. That's all I care about.
Yeah. And speaking of pissing off Fox News...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah?
You segued that brilliantly.
Al Franken is coming, folks.
Yay.
Oh?
To whom?
Real
To where?
soon. Al Franken and Janine Garofalo are among the personalities unveiled by the upstart Air America radio network Thursday. This was written on March 11th.
Ooh, so we missed it last show.
No. The network, which bills itself as a liberal alternative to conservative talk radio, launches on radio stations in 4 different markets across the country on March 31st.
Sweet.
Mark your calendars.
All right.
If you live in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, or San Francisco.
Are they going to have an online presence?
I would hope so.
It's Radio America. What? What's it called?
Air America Radio, which I'm gathering from later this article, or from an interview that Franken gave, is actually kind of a pun in itself, because Air America was some airline that was running during the Vietnam War or something like that.
Yes.
Do you know what his show is going to be called?
Oh, well, isn't that...
Should be good.
I hope he uses that book title that he mentioned in his last book. It's I fucking hate those right-wing motherfuckers. He's like, this is going to be my next book.
That would be a good title, but the actual title of his show is The O. Franken Factor. For real. I mean, I guess he figured the Fair and Balanced lawsuit from Fox gave such a boost that, hey, we need to get sued again.
Yeah. Like, hey, you want to see some real infringement? Here, take this.
Actress Janine Garofalo will co-host The Majority Report with political humorist Sam Seder in a 3-hour nighttime slot Monday through Friday. Other personalities on the network include former Daily Show correspondent Liz Winstead, rapper
Cool.
Chuck D, and longtime radio host Marty Kaplan. Catherine Lanfer, a Minnesota public radio host and former newspaper columnist, will co-host the O'Franken Factor with Al Franken.
Great.
Cool.
Hey, we'll see if we can set up a pitch meeting with those people for nonprofits. Go nationwide.
Yeah.
Don't get us started.
Quote from Al Franken here. I'm so happy that Air America Radio will be on in 3 battleground states. New York, Illinois, and California. No, wait, those aren't battleground states. What the hell are we doing? So there you have it.
Franken is pretty keen.
Yeah. High time for that.
What the hell are we doing?
Is there a website for Air America?
Is there a website for Air America? Chatters? Let us know.
I think that I saw a banner for them on Salon.com's main page, so that if that were to link to, I don't know if that's still up. They probably have those rotating ad banners, but
Don't get it confused with the movie.
yeah. So I'm, sure there is one. Good grief.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, Dennis, I forgot. You do have some new passion. Oh, the Christ.
Oh,
news,
yes.
don't you? I guess let's get that out of the way.
Okay,
we pretty
sure.
much beat that dead savior into the ground last episode, but
we all know the movie's killed at least 2 people now, right? And apparently maimed a couple more.
but Russell's got that story.
Okay,
We'll do that one after yours.
Okay, we'll do that one after me. But I'm just wondering if 2 count as making it a body count movie. We'll have to see.
These things usually come in 3s.
Yeah, that's a good point. But this one is the Passion Prompts a Murder Confession.
Yeah, I heard the scene where Jesus shouts, "Fire! Fire!" is kind of controversial.
This is from BBC News, telling us about what's happening in Texas. Okay, well, a Texas man has been prompted by Mel Gibson's Passion film to confess he killed his girlfriend, a police spokesman has said. Dan Leach, 21, said he killed his pregnant girlfriend, Ashley Nicole Wilson, found dead on January 18th, Fort Bend County Sheriff's Department said. He mentioned that speaking with a friend and seeing the movie made him feel remorse, police added.
I have an address from the chatters. Thank you, Pi Wacket. The address is www.centralairmedia.com. That's odd.
Okay.
Well, Leach said he made it look as if the 19-year-old had committed suicide. Her body was found in her apartment with a suicide note describing her depression. She appeared to have hanged herself. Leach said he wanted to seek redemption after seeing The Passion of the Christ. He went to police on 9th of March and was released while they investigated his claim. Leach was arrested on Tuesday and is being held on $100,000 bail.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's if he wants to become a Christian, he'll be in good company.
Well, so, what do we think about this?
Well,
Someone fell for it.
He's clearly an irrational person. I mean, I suppose you could make an argument that we're completely stupid, irrational people who do stupid, irrational things. Religion is something that will keep them in line.
Mm-hmm. But it looked as if he got away with his murder.
Well, that doesn't make it. Yeah,
which means he's really good at avoiding responsibility for his actions.
Sure.
Which makes him a perfect candidate for Christian.
Well, and he.
But let's be clear. We're happy that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
that the perpetrator is going to be brought to is going to be punished. Mm-hmm. Right. We're happy about that, right?
Right. Right. Justice
of
will
course.
be served.
So, I mean, that's a good thing.
It certainly was a big emotional appeal,
mm-hmm.
and so it's no surprise that it would have some effect.
Yeah, it'll be a great
story. What do we say?
Christians are
going to come to us and say this proves.
Story.
Yeah, they're going to come to us and say this proves that Christianity is so important.
Right.
Well,
Well, Well, if religions in general didn't have something, even if it were the placebo effect, beneficial to offer some folks, they wouldn't, last for millennia. Again, if you have a situation where you've got a stupid, irrational person, somebody who would do something like what he did in the first place, is not a sane, rational, thinking human being.
That's right.
He's selfish. He's petty. He has no sense of empathy whatsoever, and even his confession is motivated again by oh no, if I'm scared, what will happen to me? And I'll go to hell.
All right, but what do you say? Suppose an atheist were to come to you and say, well, it's perfectly okay to throw out this emotional net to try to snare some of these irrational crooks, right, by making this emotional appeal and getting them to turn themselves in. Is it okay to have this big stinking lie of Christianity because some people are dumb enough they're going to fall for it and either not do bad things in the first place or atone for them afterwards?
Well, I think that it is an uncomfortable reality to face that irrational people will not be swayed by rational arguments. They won't be swayed by anything but emotional appeals.
Right.
I think that's just an unfortunate fact of life. Now, does that make religion a good thing, in the big picture overall for everyone, a healthy thing for children and puppies?
Yeah.
And no, I don't think so.
No.
I would have to say no to that argument myself on the basis that in order for that to work, there's no way to target that big lie of Christianity just to stupid people,
Right.
or just to stupid people who have done something wrong. What you do then is you throw that out there and you say, well, we need to have Christianity so that we'll catch the dumb people doing things wrong. What you do is you delude a whole bunch of perfectly innocent dumb people.
Right.
That's true. Yeah, but again, ultimately this boils down to sort of a unique scenario. This is this one guy who had this one event and somebody could make a similar argument along the lines of, well, I've smoked for 45 years and I don't have lung cancer, so that means that, for some people smoking's just fine. Well, no, it doesn't. Okay? Some people will smoke all their lives and come and never get sick or whatsoever, never come down with cancer, never come down with emphysema, but that doesn't mean it's a healthy, wise vocation to take up.
Yeah, well, you should always remember the words of my grandfather. If you smoke for 100 years, you'll live to be a very old man.
Just because you can point to one or two isolated examples of something happening that involves religion where a good thing is the outcome, doesn't mean that overall that it's okay to go ahead and perpetrate pretty lies to delude people.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
And thereby, I make my own sparkling segue into the next news story.
We're just coming along today, aren't we? Yeah.
The nation's largest private operator of prisons has joined with a prison ministry group to offer what it hopes will be a prototype for faith-based rehabilitation nationwide. The voluntary program, developed by the Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, and the Chicago-based Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP, is designed to help inmates who seek spiritual guidance as they try to change their lives. We have always had chaplains and counselors at our facilities and have seen the positive effect that spiritual counseling can have on an inmate's life, said Jim Seaton, Chief Operating Officer of the CCA, which is headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, right. What we're seeing here, we know what the statistics are on this.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we're not quite sure because they always fudge the statistics.
But we've seen those statistics and we've seen the fudging, right?
Yeah.
There is, in fact, no evidence that these sorts of things really help anyone. What you get is people who have been involved in these programs, who believed they were going to work, see occasional examples that convince them that they are working. This is assuming that, that they are, in fact, sincere in care in the first place and not just in it for the money. But the ones that are sincere are going to see occasional examples of especially stupid people like our murderer friend, right, turning their life around when they are in one of these courses and conclude thereby that it's all for the best. But there's really no evidence of that.
Well, this is a perfect example of corporate synergy. It's sort of like H-E-B having a store brand name of the groceries they sell. See, this way, just like with grocery stores making their own groceries, we have the churches producing the criminals and the prisons distributing them.
Now, we don't have statistics showing that churches produce criminals, do we?
I bet we could come up with some.
I'm not aware of.
Probably talk to 10,000 molested
I can make some up.
Catholic
okay,
churches.
Except for those.
Yeah.
But
you know what I think of
priests.
every time I hear these reports about prison ministries and this whole Jesus will cure you of your criminal life programs that they try to faith-based rehabilitation as it were. I think of the whole sequence from Clockwork Orange, right? Where Alex is, sucks up to the prison chaplain to, and pretends to be all devout and holy. In order, again, if everything he does in that movie is basically designed to get him off of his, get him out and get him free. If I'm a prisoner and I know that being seen walking around toting a Bible and attending services and praying and acting all devout is something that might get me time off my sentence, guess what I'm going to do?
Yeah, right.
I mean...
Right. Though again, right, citing the example of our murderer friend, there are people who will be compelled by these emotional appeals. I'm sure there are. Yeah. The question is, overall, do you get more recidivism with these faith-based programs or other programs? And the answer, based on the statistics we've seen, is no.
Yeah, well, what is that thing with the prison statistics where the vast majority of people in prison are religious? They say,
you mean going in?
So if Christianity and all this stuff will keep you from doing crimes, will turn your life around, stuff like that, what are they doing in prison in the first place?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
But then, I would ask the same question about that murderer guy, right? If he walked into that theater a believer, because we had this discussion on the last show. We don't know if he did. We don't. But we had this discussion on the last show, right? That film was clearly targeted to preach to the choir, right? I don't know of any claims from anywhere of people having been turned into Christians because of that film. Though again, there probably are some stupid people that fell for it. Yeah. Right. But you'd think those people, there's plenty of Christianity out there for them to stumble into. Yeah. Why would they wait until now? I find it hard to believe that you could walk into there and be compelled to admit murder if you didn't already believe in the God and all the supernatural premises in the first place. Yeah. But if he believed all that stuff in the first place, then he believed it even while he was stringing up his dead girlfriend.
Yeah. Right. That's a good point.
Well, if he didn't believe it, what was he seeing the movie for?
We saw perhaps he had his own atheist internet audio show. That's why we went. I'm just speculating here, folks.
Yeah, except we didn't get converted, so there's not really an analogy there.
He was probably like I think most Americans are. I think most Americans have, if nothing else,
maybe he was attracted by the violence and the blood.
Could have been. He related to this. He's like, I should have tried that. Damn.
And he goes, no, I don't like this. This isn't nice. She didn't bleed nearly this much when I wrapped a rope around her neck and dangled her from the hallway.
He probably had a similar sort of belief that I think the overwhelming majority of Americans have, which is, most people are just born into it, right? And they take the belief for granted. It's just I think most people.
But they don't take it that seriously or think about it much.
That's a good point.
So the movie would have made him think about the stuff that he already was adopting.
Because
that's possible.
The overwhelming majority of the population of our country, I think, probably if you just say, hey, do you believe there's a God? They're probably going, well, yeah, but then...
Well, they do, yeah.
But then out of them, you say, okay, now are you a regular devout churchgoer, and how often do you pray? And they probably, well, not ever, really.
Right.
You know, because it's so part of our culture, the belief is just a thing that's, the existence of God is just taken for granted.
Yeah, and all it takes is for them to be flipping through the radio and hear somebody say, well, aren't you ashamed that you never go to church?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, well, yeah, I kind of am. Well...
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not a thing that...
Which is different.
Again,
from
critical thinking is not exactly a skill that our educational system promotes.
Right.
So...
Heaven forbid.
Yeah, so it's... So this guy probably, believed in God in that same sort of latent way that probably most people do. But had never, but until he saw the film, didn't have it shoved in his face so much.
That's right.
The quote unquote,
a little more visceral.
Yeah. And
all right.
And when he saw that, it was enough to. I mean, his already irrational mind was sort of flooded with the whole idea of, oh wow, boy, this shit's really serious.
Okay, but imagine that you go to sleep tomorrow morning, you wake up. There's no more Christianity. We have a secular nation and a rational approach to solving our nation's problems.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do about dumb people that commit murder? What do we do about them?
Well, first you lock them up. You can put them in jail.
Well, suppose they're dumb enough to fall for Christianity, if there was any, but not dumb enough to bungle their effort to cover their tracks by actually stringing up the girlfriend.
Well, again, keep in mind, there's murders that go unsolved for 10 years, right? I mean, look at the
Dennis is giving me a funny look. I want to explain this because there might be other people that understand.
I'm trying to figure out where the hell you're going with this.
I want to know. I think it's worth discussing. If we're going to sit here and criticize the use of religion as a means of getting people stopping people from doing bad things, right? Then what do we have to offer instead? That's where I'm going. Is that clear?
Well, first off, we don't know that this guy never eventually would have been caught. He only committed this crime, a couple months ago in January?
Yeah, but I mean, it's special pleading to assume that he would have gotten caught anyway.
Yeah, it looks like he got away with it. I mean... From the news story.
And we should...
But I mean, the bigger question...
But again, there are cold cases in crime that go unsolved for 20 years, and then eventually some forensic guy comes along and finds something.
I don't think
they're not all criminal masterminds.
I think the bigger question, though, is are there a sizable number of people who do not commit murder, but would if they didn't have their religious beliefs holding them back? We know a lot of people who claim that they would, but is that actually true?
That's a good question.
And we know people
I think it's not true because there have been secular cultures where God was just not an issue and they didn't have massive murder rates. So
yeah, and we know
like
of
Japan,
people that murder because
most of them are
religion.
Shinto,
right?
right?
You certainly do.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
And, I suppose they probably have a lower murder rate than America, since America has one of the highest murder rates per capita out there. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah. So don't use us.
Oh, yeah, just because
you're a bad example. But we are the Christian country. We are
Right, we are the blood-drenched Christian country. Yeah.
Again, just because you can point to an example or even a few examples of cases where religion made a murderer come clean, or what have you. Again, that doesn't, as you pointed out, Dennis, you can look at dozens, if not hundreds, of cases where religion was either a motivating factor to commit a murder or was, a person committed murder in spite of their religious beliefs.
Right.
I'm thinking of guys like John List, who was this devout, he was a deacon in his church, I think, had a deeply, wiped out his whole family, massacred his entire family, especially his children. He wanted to protect his children from the evils of the world. Right? Like he saw his teenage daughter growing up, and and his teenage son growing up, and getting all interested in things that teenagers get interested in. And so he decided to send his family to heaven so they wouldn't be corrupted by the evils of the world. Right. And then what did this responsible Christian man do? Well, he changed his identity and went off and became a different man in color for something like 25 fucking years.
Right.
Okay. But he eventually got caught out, right? But here's a guy who, again, used his religion to justify what he did, in his own mind, and then escaped justice for
avoided responsibility.
What good does it really do
but,
to capture him after 25 years?
But
I mean, the point is,
if Christians come to us and say, "Look at this example, right? This Jesus movie made this guy turn himself in. That's proof that Christianity works and it's a good thing for our culture." You know, you can't, getting into recriminations about, your religion makes people commit murders in the first place.
Well, it just seems
I don't
to me
think it directly addresses the point, because they're going to, they believe.
Well, in a way, it does,
They
because
believe that our lack of religion does that.
But we've never heard anyone.
You would have to find out if more murders are caused by
statistics.
You would have to find out if more murders are caused by the religion than prevented by it. And if that turns out to be the case, then dumping the religion is a win.
But are we willing to stand there, fold our arms, look the Christian in the eye, and say, well, if we were in charge, maybe this guy would have gotten away. But our way is still better, because in general, more people would be caught, or less murders would be committed in the first place.
Well, the Christians are technically in charge now, and there are murderers who get away with it. I mean, I don't see that. If we lived in a purely secular nation, would there be Would there be some murders? Would there be murders who get away with murder? Probably, just as there are now. I don't know ultimately that you can.
I know this is a real awkward discussion, because I'm trying to come at it from the same sort of emotional angle that they'd come at it from.
Right. You're trying to appeal to them.
I'm trying to appeal as them. On their level.
Well, then my first response to that sort of argument, if Christian got in my face and said, okay, well, look at what happened with this guy. That proves. Well, again, I would toss in their face John List. I would toss in their face, a Paul Hill. I would toss in their face all of the religiously motivated murderers and say, again, it seems to me, okay, you can name one guy who saw the Mel Gibson movie and confessed to a murder. Okay, I'll give you 5 religious murders. There, I win, 5-1. I mean, what's the point? I
guess that's fair.
That's an emotional appeal.
They've started the emotion. They've made it an emotional, arena.
Just because you can point to examples of religion having beneficial effects on people's lives, which of course you can, because if religion had no beneficial effect on anybody's life ever, there would be no religion. Right? There would be no reason for it to people wouldn't be attracted to it.
You could say the same thing about the Republican Party, though.
That's true, right? But does that make it, over? But does that still? That's a separate issue from whether or not believing in invisible magic space pixies is a rational act, and that there aren't better ways to live your lives.
I know.
Yeah. So again, I think the point is that it is an emotional appeal for them to perhaps get in our face and bring up this one guy and say,
that's probably fair.
Andrea Yates drowned all 5 of her babies. They were that was a fundamentalist family.
But she was nuts. I like how they're willing to cut their own people loose and say, point the nuts finger at when they get caught doing something,
or just
bad.
Point their nuts at them.
As long as they stop short of actually doing the murder, they're not nuts.
Yeah,
even if it's exactly the same beliefs.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I have right here a counter to the guy who confessed to murder. A couple was induced to violence a couple of weeks ago.
I'm going to ask you to hold off on that, because I'm only halfway through this prison story.
Oh.
Go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got sidetracked back on.
Yeah, we did.
On Jesus confess.
Yeah, this great segue came up, and I just had to take it.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we got this unholy alliance of prison ministry and a corporation that runs prisons, right? The program will begin this year in 8 CCA correctional facilities, mostly in the South, but it could eventually be expanded to all 64 CCA jails, detention centers, and prisons throughout the United States, company officials said. CCA officials said they expect about 1,000 inmates to complete the program this year. Now, hang on to your irony meters. Goals include character building, helping ease their return to society, and reducing recidivism. It's the character building that makes my eyebrows shoot up. This is a religion that teaches you that you already deserve to suffer eternal torment. In fact, you're going to continue to deserve to suffer eternal torment even after you've completed the class. Even after you have declared your life for Jesus, according to the religion, you still deserve to suffer eternally. You deserve to have infinitely worse things happen to you than happened to Jesus in that movie.
Right.
And this is character building. Character building.
Yeah.
The only thing
and also Christianity preaches that, but if you confess Jesus as your Savior, you're forgiven for stuff.
Right.
Right.
You get
no accountability.
Yeah.
So no accountability. It's a big
no accountability.
Yeah. It's your moral MasterCard is paid off by
You're
Dad.
not responsible for your actions.
That's
the Heavenly Father.
Character building?
Yeah.
To on the one hand think you are a worthless piece of trash,
but you can be forgiven.
But you can get away with stuff.
Yeah.
That's character building.
Right.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
To test the effectiveness of the program, CCA and IBLP will measure cognitive thinking and behavioral changes in participants at 2 pilot sites.
I'm glad they don't test non-cognitive thinking. What the hell?
That's a good point.
I think they need to test it with a with some party not involved in their little scam.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, they're doing the testing themselves, which is a warning flag. Then they're going to test, it says cognitive thinking. It doesn't say critical thinking. It doesn't say reasoning or logic, right?
Yeah, I mean, cognitive thinking could just be, I really want a donut. I mean, that's cognitive thinking.
He's thinking cognitively.
There it is, Homer, the cleverest thing you'll ever say, and no one was around to hear it. No!
Tests will be given before and after the course to measure changes in behavior in areas that include lying, stealing, blaming others, and physical aggression.
Oh, boy.
John Lands, director of Faith-Based Initiatives for CCA, said that the prison system believes in its new residential faith-based program. They believe in their faith-based program.
Without evidence.
I'm glad.
That's kind of a given.
In their faith-based program. Well, duh, that's what it's based on.
Yeah.
Faith.
But as Christianity teaches, you can never have enough faith.
It's like, I think I'm going to make my wooden table out of wood. That's that kind of statement. Right?
Yeah, that's... glad to see you cognitively thinking.
It will run for 4 months in jails and 6 months in prisons. The program will provide inmates with a religious ministry in conjunction with other opportunities they need, such as physical activity, intellectual pursuits, emotional support, and the chance to learn social skills.
Intellectual pursuits.
Now,
what do they mean by intellectual?
I'm curious.
That bothers me. Emotional support, I know exactly the kind of emotional support that churches offer. It's this. You feel terrible about what you did? Come on, join our religion. We'll like you. That's the emotional support.
Mm-hmm. Jesus will forgive you if you just confess your sins.
In a television interview, Mr. Land said that all inmates are eligible for the program regardless of religious background.
But they're only going to get Christianity preached to them. Is that the idea?
And that religious conversion is neither required nor encouraged for completion of the program. Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Again, I'm reminded of
You're going to have a faith-based program
Orange.
where faith is not required. Faith in the particular religion that they're offering you is not required. Then in what sense is it faith-based? Is it or isn't it? Dennis Bradby, CCA Vice President of Inmate Program, said, inmates will experience up to 372 hours of faith-based activities after 6 months in the program. I guess that's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
The activities...
Now, for some reason, that also reminds me of A Clockwork Orange.
Because everybody knows 731 hours just wouldn't be enough.
No. That's very true.
The activities will include expressing their views and insights on paper, along with character work and anger management courses, community service mentoring, and optional worship services and study groups. Yeah, optional, you think, maybe in the sense that saying the Pledge of Allegiance is optional in California for little kids?
You don't have to do it, but...
you are in a prison.
Yeah, the same way my stepdaughter at her school was allowed to opt out of meeting everybody at the flagpole to pray, as long as she came up to the coach in front of the class and told him why she was choosing not to participate.
Really? They made her do that?
Yeah, that was last year, I think.
Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how's the lawsuit coming?
There wasn't one. She's in her dad's custody.
Oh,
okay. This whole emphasis on peer pressure is extremely sickening. A story I did not bring in was about a woman in Michigan who runs a witchcraft museum, I think. She's an atheist, and she has a museum about witchcraft. And she spoke out against either prayers at state-sponsored events or a Ten Commandments monument or something. Didn't bring the story in, so I'm guessing on some of the details here. When she was testifying in front of the panel, she was shouted down and cut off before her allotted time had expired. Well, she's gotten she has received. It was a news story because she has received an official apology and maybe monetary compensation because of what they did to her.
Cool.
But in the interview, she says, at one point I was backed into an alley by a crowd of angry Christians who were shouting at me that sometime when I least expected I was going to get a bullet through my head.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's Christian love.
That's character building.
That's character building. That's right, because everybody needs to hear that.
Yeah.
News of the CCA-IBLP partnership comes on the heels of an announcement late last year that a state prison near Jacksonville, Florida had become the nation's first faith-based jailhouse. At the dedication of that overhauled prison, Florida Governor Jeb Bush, a Republican, said he and his elder brother, President Bush, share the view that the best way to rehabilitate criminals is to lead them to God. Not that they have any evidence that this is true.
Wasn't
just believe it.
Wait a minute, wasn't his the state that just executed Paul Hill? Yeah, Paul Hill was
that's leading someone to God, isn't it?
But he was Mr. Godly abortion clinic doctor shooter. Seemed to me like he had lots of God.
Yeah.
He had pretty good heavy doses of God. He was led to God just fine. And look how he turned out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Asked yesterday if he thinks there is a trend toward faith-based prison programs, Mr. Land of the CCA said, I think there is.
Yeah.
I have faith.
Because they're a captive audience, and we really should take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd really like to know more about the psychology that drives the people running these programs to believe that they are effective when the statistics show that they're not.
It's faith-based. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be religious. It's anything, Therapeutic touch. Convinced it works, It's bullshit.
Yeah. Evolution. Loads of evidence.
If you
Intelligent design. No evidence.
If you invest any kind of emotion or time or anything into something, apparently some people, they just get locked into it no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, fundamentalists and ideologues...
Strike them with a frickin' crowbar.
It's, statistics and evidence don't matter unless it's, of course, that which they can either make up or fudge to give the appearance that it supports their position. Whether, they're applying confirmation bias or what have you. In fact, I just, I don't know if you guys have done this article yet, or if it's even something that, I don't know, it's not really an atheist subject.
Okay, go ahead.
But I think yesterday in the news, there was something to the effect that it is now official, based on the most comprehensive study ever done on the subject, there is no link between abortion and getting breast cancer.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is one of the many non-scientific claims, however, that the anti-abortion crowd has been scaring women with. Saying, if you have an abortion, it dramatically increases your risk of breast cancer.
Not that they give a damn about whether people get breast cancer or not. They just
want to scare them away from
cancer. If a woman gets breast cancer, it's God's will.
But there was recently, there was this fundy woman that I kind of got into a back and forth with in the Austin Chronicle letter column, because she had made this claim and then cited like this one study from Finland where it gave the appearance that maybe there was some sort of causal link. Now, I and several other letter writers wrote back saying, okay, well, what other factors did this study take into account? Right. And it's interesting that you're taking one study from, like, Finland in 1974, okay, and you're using this to bolster your entire argument that there is some sort of causal link between having an abortion and then coming down with breast cancer, which, by the way, is a claim that is made in these pamphlets now that the Bush administration is forcing, clinics to, like, give out to women, right? But now the most recent news article, and it's made the wires. It's everywhere, right? I mean, according to the most comprehensive study done, something like over 56 studies from 18 countries over years and years and years, correlated all the data. No link. There's no evidence that there's any greater risk of coming down with breast cancer if a woman has an abortion. Now, do you think that this is going to sway though the anti-abortion people who want to continue making the claim that it does? In any way, shape, or form? Of course not. And it's the same thing with, I think, it's the same mentality that is going on behind these prison ministries, where they just, whether there is data or not to show that these faith-based rehabilitation programs work at all, the people behind them are still going to say, well, yes, I believe that they will.
Fundamentalists.
It's all, again, it's the ultimate goal of the Christianity's agenda is to make more Christians.
Right.
And that's really all it boils down
fundamentalists
to
have this communication network, which is a lot like spam. I mean, here's a piece of information that you can use when you argue. Forward it to all your friends. Tell them all to use it. But the problem with spam is it only goes one way. You can't really communicate back with the people who have already heard it when you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a dumb argument. That's why even now you hear creationists arguing that, hey, did you know that Darwin on his deathbed said that evolution is all a big lie?
Right.
Now, creationists have known for years and years and years that is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
But they have no effective way of disseminating the fact that, hey, we're wrong about this, don't spread it anymore. Because in order to counteract a rumor, you need critical thinking. And they don't have that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, also, it's even if they had the resources to get out there and spread the truth about something as effectively as they have spread their lies, why would they do it?
Right.
When, again, the ultimate goal, the agenda, Christianity's agenda is make more Christians. And if you can do that by, casting science as the big enemy, and so what, right? Again, it's Paul in 1 Corinthians 9:20, tell whatever lie you have to tell, if it wins more converts.
What did Jesus do?
Yeah.
He would lie.
The whole Paluxy Mantrax and the Paluxy Riverbed stuff.
Right, that's still going on.
The creationist there was a creationist documentary, Footprints in Stone, from the early 70s, which was taken out of circulation by its own distributor, when it became clear that those damn things were fake. But has that had any effect on believers believing that they're real?
Nope.
No. Again. And in the end, why would they go out of their way to say we were wrong? Because if they say we were wrong about one thing,
I mean, and I've encountered this firsthand. Once again, I'll tell the story of my discussion with my mother, who's a minister, who told me when we were having a heart-to-heart about religion.
Hang on, real quick.
What?
Godstopper in the chat room says my mother wrote the book on the link between breast cancer and abortion. It was called "Every Woman Has the Right to Know the Dangers of Legal Abortion." And he says, she made up a lot of stuff and she left stuff out and flat out lied. I was there for it.
Wow.
Interesting.
Does the nonprofits have an email address like the TV show? Maybe we could get maybe we can.
Yeah, we do. It's radio at
atheist-community.org.
Radio at atheist-community.org.
Maybe Godstopper could send you guys more details. About
sure,
this.
do that.
We'd love to hear.
Please do.
Yeah.
What was I saying? So I was talking to my mother who told me when I was, rattling off to her the evidence that a lot of the Bible is just made up, right? She said, "Oh yeah, we know that. We were taught that in seminary. We know how little of the, because there was this thing called the Jesus Seminar.
Right.
That were scholars that went through to try to figure out how much of the stuff in the New Testament could at all be thought to be the words of an actual guy that was Jesus.
Actually historically verifiable.
Right. And it's much like if you've heard the story of Thomas Jefferson when he went through the New Testament and cut out all the supernatural stuff and pared it down to just the things that he thought were worth claiming was Jesus. I mean, it's the same sort of thing.
Right.
And there's not much left when you do that. And my mom knows all this. So I asked her, do you tell the people in your church about this? And she, sort of got quiet and looked down at her hands and looked up at me with this concerned expression on her face and said, no, they're not ready to hear that yet. So even when there's shit that they know is a lie, your job as a minister is to keep people in the fold and to comfort them.
Right.
And that's the number one priority.
Yeah.
And if there's any danger that telling them the truth is going to make them less comfortable or make them consider leaving, then you don't tell them.
Right. Right. Well, admitting that you are peddling an inferior product is not good for business.
Who's the guy on our mailing list who says that he's raising his kids to refer to churches as religion stores? Because that's what they do. They sell you religion. So if you've got a religion...
No, he didn't raise the kid that way. The kid just came up with that on his own.
The kid did,
he said, look, there's a religion store.
Yeah. And so he, so if the religion store admits that the product that they're selling is a big fat crock, how good is that for business? How good is that? That's not good for philanthropy and collection plates.
But on the other hand, you go and buy some pharmaceutical product, and it'll have a little label on there telling you about, warnings and cautions.
Sure, but
so when you're worried about the public health, right, mental or physical, that or if you're being ethical, or if we had some kind of a governing,
oversight,
oversight organization in our government, that whose job was to make sure that religion was safe and effective, right? Then there would be labels like that on religion. You'd go in there and you'd have to have Bibles that would have these asterisks everywhere, leading to little captions saying, the religion general has determined that this passage is probably completely made up.
Yeah. Right. But again, the analogy
like
is
to see big labels slapped on there that says, warning, we've determined that at least 99% of this book is probably bullshit.
What's that great bit from Red Dwarf? The page that was accidentally torn out of the original manuscript of the Bible?
Go at the beginning of the Bible and reads, to my beloved Candy, any characters in this book are fictitious and should not be considered.
Yeah, any resemblance between actual people. Coincidental.
Yeah.
Well, but again, though, if you had, it's not a 100% accurate analogy that you made, because of course what you get on a pharmaceutical bottle, right?
Yeah.
Is you get you buy these pills for whatever your sexual dysfunction or your something, and then there might be a thing on there saying warning, may cause dry heaves or headaches or bad rash. And now if there were a
that's my favorite.
But now if there were a warning like saying hello, if I saw a warning label on a medication saying this antihistamine may not in fact do anything at all to stop your runny nose or sneezing or then I'm not buying that antihistamine, I'm buying a different one. But see, that would be the kind of warning you'd have to have.
There are labels like that, and they go on these supplements, right? And they say the FDA has not. The claims on this product have not been verified by the FDA.
Right. And who buys those? Irrational people.
Yeah. That's what I think we should have we need to create some organizations and specifically call them reason-based organizations.
Yeah. Okay, Russell, why don't you go on to Speaking of the Passion of the Christ, that was a terrible segue.
We stopped doing that a long time ago.
Going back to speaking of the Passion of the Christ, because
and let's see, couple arrested after passion fight. A couple.
The crime of passion.
It's like on one of those sitcoms, you know, they're like, are you as turned on as I am? More!
All right, everybody, passion fight. Woo!
A couple who got into a dispute.
No. Go ahead.
A couple who got into a dispute over a theological point after watching The Passion of the Christ were arrested after the argument turned violent. The two left the movie debating whether God the Father and the Holy Trinity was human or symbolic, and the argument heated up when they got home. Melissa Davidson said, you know, I always have to laugh when I hear those kind of arguments because it's completely made up. It's like those arguments about whether Captain Kirk could beat up Captain Picard. I mean, either answer you pick is fine, really.
Do the astronauts have weapons?
No, then cavemen win. Okay, anybody out there that watches Angel will get that joke.
It was the dumbest thing we've ever done, she said.
In a rare flash of
Wait a minute, they're Christians, aren't they?
That's right. They joined the religion in the first place. Plus, they paid, probably, $6-7 to watch the stupid movie in the first place.
Well, maybe
anyway.
maybe she took a blow that jogged a few synapses and got
Could
to
be. Yeah.
Davidson, 34, and her husband, Sean Davidson, 33, were charged with simple battery on March 11th after the two called the police on each other. They were released on $1,000 bail. According to a police report, Melissa Davidson suffered injuries on her arm and face, while her husband had a scissor stab wound on his hand and his shirt was ripped off.
Now, did they say where in his hand? Was it in the middle of the palm or was it in the wrist?
Sounds like just a reenactment, doesn't it?
Yeah. It does.
Maybe they're trying some kinky sex thing.
Because Jesus had his shirt ripped off.
Yeah. He also allegedly punched a hole in the wall, which I can't find a parallel for.
So that would be .25 stigmata.
Did either of them call down crows to peck out the other's eyes? That's what I want to know.
Not directly, no, but the crows came anyway. No, well, not in this story.
What are you talking about?
Really, it was a kind of a pitiful thing to go to a movie like that and fight about it. I think they missed the point, said Gene McDaniel, Chief Sheriff's Deputy. Well, Gene, so have a whole lot of other Christians throughout history missed the point. If that's true.
Oh, man.
You don't hear about these kinds of assaults after viewing, Citizen Kane.
Or Dawn of the Dead.
Or Dawn of the Dead.
So you think it's better to burn zombies or behead them?
Behead them.
No, burn them!
Burn!
No! Burn! No, beat them up!
This is important. You have to behead them.
By the way, I've been requested by the chat room to announce something that was mentioned at the Atheist Network, which is that you can join in on the March for Choice on April 25th. Check out www.marchforwomen.org for more details.
Yes, please check that out.
All right.
We're in favor of that.
Of course.
Hooray.
We did, we did like a couple of weeks of gay marriage stuff. I intentionally didn't bring, and women's issues and things. I mean, I intentionally didn't bring any of those stories this time, but
yeah.
Well, it's kind of been a slow week
there
for that.
Still a lot. Well, yeah, but it's still an important issue. And God, how many different fronts are we fighting on right now?
A lot.
We got
Well, it's an election year, so quite a lot.
We got Under God and the Pledge. We got Ten Commandments monuments. Mm-hmm. We got abortion rights. We got gay marriage rights. Right. What else we got? Oh, faith-based initiative.
Yeah.
We got
still the ID people.
How about the idea that
evolution in schools?
How about the idea that we can terrorists from Afghanistan by going and fighting in Iraq?
The whole frickin' war.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's the rhetoric is heating up because this is an election year, and so the right is going to really be pouring on steam for the next few months.
The right has been pouring on steam for the last 3 years.
But it's getting getting worse because the polls are now not really favoring their guy the way they were a year ago, because the extent of the bullshit is now so pervasive that more people are starting to get clued in.
I know the news groups are getting
Is there any
spammed
danger
pretty
that
heavy.
they'll actually tone it down in order to get him popular again?
What you mean, tone down their
the religious rhetoric? Try to get Bush seen more moderate again. I mean, that's how they got him in the first place.
Right.
Was dressing him up as a moderate.
Yeah, but I don't think that will work.
I don't think they'll get away with it.
Better not.
No, I don't think that will.
Otherwise, there is no hope.
Yeah. You never know. Some moron might go in to see the Passion of the Christ and come out and say, "I've decided to feel remorseful for not voting for George Bush last time." You never know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me that they would be actually that cynical to not try to,
No, not at all.
What, are you kidding?
If you voted
do you remember? Huh?
If you watch Passion of the Christ, then you have no business not voting for George W. Bush because he's Jesus' candidate.
There you go.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
What do you mean? You don't think they'd be that cynical?
No, I'm saying it wouldn't surprise me if they were exactly that cynical.
Absolutely.
Well.
Yeah, but I think the real danger is them, brushing all that under the carpet again, like they did to get him into office in the first place. There was that big absence of any fundamentalist speakers at the Republican National Convention for that election. They hid all those guys behind the curtain so that they could shoehorn their guy into office.
But now they
trotted it all out again as soon as they had control.
But now I think it will be okay for them to be very overt about playing the Jesus card because there's a $300 million Jesus movie out, and it's okay to be a Jesus freak again. Okay, that's
fine. So who's the zombies candidate?
Yeah.
Now that Dawn of the Dead is the biggest film in the country, right? Well, who's the pro-zombie presidential candidate? Nader, you say? Just because he's green? The gangrene party.
And by the way, from the chat room, we have what I hope is the final word on that debate. Bogus says, well, burning the zombies would stink, or beheading the zombies would stink less.
But last longer.
No, burn them.
No,
because you burn one, he might stumble into another one. You get two zombies for the price of one. Come on.
But he might stumble into a real person.
No, they're all dead.
Well, then who's doing the burning and beheading?
Good point.
All right.
I think we're getting too philosophical about zombies.
Speaking of political conservatives.
In a major win for social conservatives, Congress is sending to the president legislation that would expand the legal rights of the unborn, quote, by making it a separate crime to harm a fetus during an assault on a pregnant woman. The Unborn Victims of Violence Act cleared the Senate on a 61-38 vote Thursday, a month after the House passed the bill and 5 years after conservatives first tried to move the legislation through Congress. The measure is limited in scope, applying only to harm to a fetus while a federal crime is being committed against the pregnant mother, such as terrorist attacks, drug-related shootings, or attacks on federal lands or military bases. But proponents on both sides of the fetal rights and the abortion issue saw far-reaching consequences. Tony Perkins, president of the Conservative Family Research Council, said with the president's signature, our nation will be one giant step closer to rebuilding a culture of life, where every child, born and unborn, is given the protections they so clearly deserve. President Bush has urged Congress to send a bill to his desk.
This is such bullshit.
They're not even pretending that they're doing it out of concern for the
when does a unborn child begin to exist?
Yeah.
I mean,
at conception? No, because their souls are eternal, right?
Yeah.
So there's unborn children looking down on us from heaven right now.
Yeah. Somebody's not going to be born until the year 3000.
My mommy and daddy didn't have sex last night, and I'm never going to be born now.
Yeah.
There's a porn shop down the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where under with these implications, right? spiritual entities that don't even have any physical existence might be having their rights violated because they might be seeing that there is some naughty material that only people who have physically incarnated for 21 years are legally entitled to see.
Okay.
You can't. There's no beginning here. That's what I'm saying.
Yep. Of course, if it does begin at conception, then the Republicans should really put their money where their mouth is and say that you can get a tax write-off for as soon as you're pregnant.
Now, what will women be charged with? What will women be charged with when they experience spontaneous abortions or miscarriages and stuff?
Well, the women will be charged. God will be charged.
Violence against a child?
Well, technically,
if they spontaneously abort, it's God.
It's God's fault.
Yeah, it's God's fault.
Of course, technically, this doesn't apply to abortions yet.
So God
it's injury to a child.
If they spontaneously abort, it wasn't the woman. It was the God.
How can it not be the woman?
Well, you don't get prosecuted for, accidental death.
If she takes some drug in order to abort, that's different. Is that what you're talking about?
Never mind.
No, really.
I'm just satirizing where a hard line on this thing would go.
Okay. But I see your point.
Okay.
But if they're going to take a hard line, they better fucking incorporate all of their claims in that line, right? If they're going to say that,
they're pretending you're a
person with rights, you're a person with rights before you're born.
Right.
When does that start? It's not clear.
Yeah. If they don't give it's not clear. And so anybody with a hard line can say, wow, you ovulate, there's a child.
Right. I'll bring up the cloning thing again, right? Right?
Right.
Every
possible.
A guy kills some skin cells by stepping on my big toe.
That's murder of children.
Potential lives.
That's right. Yeah.
Where you
draw the line.
But that would be man playing God, and those people don't have those clones would not have souls, which is why cloning is evil, which is why we have to ban it.
Okay, now cloning. Good point. Okay. That is part of their part of their belief structure. But when it comes to spontaneous abortions, these are the people who are claiming that the reason you're a person that has rights before you're born is because we're all really souls and we come from heaven and there's all the supernatural crap going on. And when things just happen spontaneously, well, it's not spontaneous, is it? It's the God.
Right.
With his big plan.
So that would be a loophole that would be a way that one could avoid prosecution under the Unborn Victims of Violence Act.
By the way,
they say that it was God
I spontaneously aborted, so God wanted it this way, so it doesn't. So
no, I'm saying the God should be charged.
Yeah.
Oh, but God gets to get away with everything. That's if you're Christian. So
all right, fine.
If it's God's will,
it's
then that
not
makes
murder.
You
It's part of the divine plan.
Yeah.
Well,
by the way,
who are we?
Name a thing that they think isn't part of the divine plan.
Abortion.
Anything that you
do. some setting aside whether there was a fetus present, right? There's a murder.
We're dipping into the free will issue.
No, we're not. No, we're not. Well, okay, fine, we are. You just watch. Somebody gets murdered. First thing, right. Christians go to that person and say, "Oh, don't be sad. It was part of the divine plan."
That's true.
What? It's not part of the divine plan now if there was a baby on board? Doesn't make any damn difference.
Wait a minute. If there's a murder, and they'll go to the person
on board.
They'll go to the survivors, right?
Yeah.
And say, "Oh, it was God's will."
Yeah.
Do they also say that to the murderer? Your killing him was God's will?
Oh no, they never say that.
No. I love consistency.
but let's let's kind of pull over onto the shoulder here and realize that this really isn't all this batting back and forth about the notion of life and when it begins and when it doesn't and what's God's will or what's not. I mean, let's just stop pretending that is really what it is all about. Where the anti-abortionists
what is it really all about?
It's all about punishing sinners. It's about controlling behaviors. Yeah. That is what is behind the entire anti-abortion movement. It's all about, if you have sex and you're not a married person, that makes you a sinner. And if you have sex and you're not a married person and you get pregnant and you decide you don't want to have the baby, then that makes you a really particularly evil sinner.
I'm still thinking ultimately that all boils down to these underlying superstitious beliefs. I mean, that's where they get the idea that there is such a thing as a class of behaviors that is wrong because there's this big creator entity that thinks it's wrong.
Yeah, but I still think though that what is behind and what motivates most of the anti-abortion movement is not so much really concern for life, because when anti-abortionists refer to life, they really mean birth. I think that this is really all about this is about punishing people who enjoy fucking. That's what it is all about. This is about punishing people for. I have seen interviews. Mm-hmm. I've seen an interview in a documentary where they talked to some woman who was this big. This was many years ago, so I'm sorry I don't have a name that I can bring to hand. But she was this very vocal anti-abortion protester. You know, she stood out in front of clinics with signs and all the rest of it. And she was just sitting there, and the interviewer was picking her brain. And she actually started saying, in all seriousness, about how God made sex for us to have babies, but He didn't want us to enjoy it. He didn't want sex to be a thing we did to enjoy. It's strictly for having babies. And so if you have sex and it's just something that you're doing to enjoy the experience of doing it, that's sinful. God doesn't want that to be a thing that you do. That's not what sex is for. It's not for us to enjoy.
Why do we then?
That's exactly what I would ask. And she would say, well,
the God was able to get everything else perfect in the entire universe, except, accidentally, human beings enjoy having sex.
Of all of them. Well, if God has to fuck up doing one thing, then that's a good thing but this was her whole, but you got to see her whole psychology and I guess revealed the fact that she'd never really had a good lay in her life, which is fairly sad. But
every orgasm is an example of God's failure.
That's really ultimately,
Wow.
Yeah. Nicomachus in chat also makes a really good point, which is, and I'm kind of assuming where he's going with this, but he says that under this law, attacking any woman you could be charged with like a potentially unlimited number of charges.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
That's right. All those eggs and the
because there's no telling how many children she could have in the future.
Yeah.
Now, maybe, okay, we've been going all over the place with this, and it's always fun to try to figure out where the hell this all leads, because one thing atheists do, one thing we do better than any Christian is take Christian beliefs seriously and see what they actually imply.
Right. We figure out the ramifications.
But this is called a fetus bill, right? So probably it's not written in a way where, taking back all the stuff that I was saying, right? Chasing it down to its ultimate implication. Probably it doesn't mean that you're guilty of additional murders for babies, the fetuses the woman might have in the future, right? Probably starts with, at some point from conception onward. But what is that point? Does it say here in this article? Is it at conception?
Does not mention it. Yeah.
So what's a fetus? What's a fetus? At what point? What stage of development is it suddenly a crime?
What if you don't know that she's pregnant?
What if you don't know she's pregnant? What if you do know she's pregnant, but it's not a fetus yet?
In the first couple of weeks.
What if, there's like, you ask 10 different doctors and you get 10 different answers about when it's a fetus, right?
Is it the instant
I guess more importantly, you ask 10 and 5 say, no, it wasn't a fetus yet when the attack occurred, and 5 say it was. Right. Then what?
Yeah.
Horrible.
Again, it's all about punishing sinners.
By
it's
the
about
way,
controlling behaviors and making more Christians.
They
And do you think that's ultimately? I'm sorry, Russell. Do you think that's ultimately just because they're all this supernatural beliefs aside? Do you think that they go after sinners with the scare quotes around it because the things they define as sin themselves are things that creep them out personally? Do you think really underneath all of that, it's people that dislike certain kinds of behaviors because it bothers them, and they're just looking for a justification to take that unease they feel and make it law?
I would agree with that a lot. I think that's what underlies opposition to same-sex marriage, for sure.
Okay.
I think that's true in a great many cases.
Would be a big way to to not make any of these mistakes, right? To stop, to turn from a fundamentalist asswipe into like a reasonable human being. The main thing to do is chill out.
And that's the first step to rationalism, chilling out.
Yeah. So, thanks everyone for listening. We will leave you with David Byrne doing Desconocido Soy again, and enjoy the song, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Hang in there, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.